to the Deep Sea Podcast, a punk take on a science podcast about everything deep sea. This is a little bit of a weird one. We did have a Tonga special poised for you, but it turns out demobilizing a cruise and getting back and sorting out everything that had been waiting for him, Alan was sideswiped a little bit. So this is an apology, little snippet so that we can get something out on Friday, but there is a much longer piece on the way where, the full-fledged episode. So as I panic and scramble, I call upon friends.
Charmed, I'm sure.
I think it's a compliment. I think it's the people you go to in your hour of need. It's obviously close.
Cephalopods are opportunists, right? They like to jump into niches where they sense an opportunity. So, I'm just channeling that.
Oh, on brand. And of course, totally deliberately, it's Squid-tember.
The best month of the year, except for whatever month happens to have Squidmas.
Yeah.
Which trumps all.
Yeah, I've been thrown off guard a little bit by Squidmas because it happens multiple times a year, or at least it has been while I've been here.
Well, it's such a great time that, we once a year doesn't seem to be enough anymore. And, we've been lucky enough to have people go out on voyages a couple of times now. And in the interests of not clogging up Niwa's freezers too much with accumulated squid greed, which we're a little bit famous for, sometimes we need to come down and process more than once a year.
And yeah, we've been busy recently. Actually realizing if anyone had missed the previous episodes you'd been on, Kat Bolstad of Auckland University of Technology, our resident toothologist, is that the correct term?
It is, yes. Although, because people tend to think that means dentistry, we also say squidologist because that's a little bit more accessible.
I like squidologist. What's the Latin root of the tooth bit?
Teuthis, Teuthis, represents all cephalopods. So actually a toothologist could be a squid biologist or study cuttlefish or octopuses. They're all included, and there's a fair number of octopus taxa that have teuthis in the Latin name as well. But it's an all-inclusive term. We're multi-opportunity for different cephalopod branches of the tree.
Does it refer to anything specific?
That is a good question. I will have to
Pass.
Remind myself. There's some famous Greek famous to people who inquire about teuthis legend about some ancient Greek prince who was called Teuthis, and there were epic battles. But I don't know whether there's actually any connection to that or not. I wouldn't venture to guess.
Well, we were arguing this afternoon about whether it's cephalopod or cephalopod, and you quite rightly said, well, everyone who speaks Latin is dead. There's no one to ask.
Yes, you can ask Eddie Susie Izzard about that. There's a great bit about what the accent should have sounded like. And you can make it whatever you want because nobody knows.
So Squid-tember, Alice is putting out lots of squid content. Isn't there a battle going on Twitter with best squid?
There is, yeah. So we channeled the best shark competition, I think it was, from a few years ago, and decided that we were going to see if we could rally enough toothologists or squidologists or general cephalopod enthusiasts to have some brackets across the month of September and see who would end up squid overlord at the end of the month. So we've got 16 cephalopod enthusiasts worldwide, each championing a particular squid. And needless to say, there has been debate about who's allowed to be included or not, and arguments about which phylogeny we should use to determine all behind the scenes, right? We settled on 16 squid-ish.
Are the bobtails in?
I think not. I think there were, I know, sorry. Do people here know that you have secret bobtail cred, by the way?
No, I don't think so. My master's thesis was...
Squid-tember is the time to reveal this information.
Yeah, was cuttlefish husbandry. So we had the big chonky sepia and then the sepiola, the little bobtailed squid. And some of my first scientific illustrations were how much better the bobtails are at burying themselves. The big cuttlefish just sort of jet themselves down and hunker down into the sand. But then there's an extra step with the bobtails where these two little... It's the tentacles, isn't it? It's the tentacles
it's two of the arms.
But two arms just pop out and just flick Just flick little bits of sand over the body, and it's very, very
there's
cute.
such a relatable GIF. They're just like disappearing down into the sand. You're like, that's me. I know exactly how that feels.
As you disappear into the throw cushions.
That's right.
And they're super cute. They're like the size of, I don't know why I'm going with this, but you know the little toy thing that you get inside a Kinder Egg? They're like that big. That's the kind of proportions. So bobtail squid are very cute.
How excited would you be if you had a Kinder Egg and you got a bobtail squid in it, though?
But then it would hide itself flicking.
Better and better. Like, that's winning.
But I know taxonomically they are.
So it depends whether you want to include everything that has the 10 appendages. Only squid and other decapods, decabrachians have tentacles. So, but then that includes cuttlefish. So then it depends whether you're willing to include cuttlefish as squid. So then there are things like bobtail squid, pygmy squid, and some other groups. Vampire squid, definitely not a squid by any definition. Also not a vampire. So, a fun name, but one of the highly inaccurate ones. So we sort of settled on the looser definition of squid. And I'm just trying to think, we've got pygmy. Pygmy is in, I think we went with no bobtails in the end. And then there might be some vampire squid drama, but I cannot reveal at this stage what may happen. So you'll have to watch the socials and see what happens.
Do you have to hand the contenders?
I do, yes.
Okay.
And the first vote has already happened. Super upsettingly, Taningia was voted out.
No, only because people don't know.
Yeah. So on the very first vote, it lost out to strawberry squid or the cockeyed squids, histotoothids, with the one big eye and the one little eye.
Yeah, and
they are very cool.
Body.
Yeah, so across the next 2 weeks, every 2 days, there is a knockout vote. So with the first pool of 16 gets reduced to 8, and then by the end of the month, I think the final matchup is on the 27th.
How do people vote?
Polls are on Twitter and Blue Sky.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I believe there's going to be some presence on Insta as well, although one of the main people who was going to be running that had her feed hacked the day before this whole thing kicked off. So we're waiting to see if we're going to have
They're trying to silence the squid.
Yeah.
Who is they? Why don't they want us to know about squid?
I think it was probably octopus people, to be honest.
Feeling excluded.
Yeah.
Grumpy in their little cave.
Yep. Yeah, brooding their eggs and not wanting any attention on cephalopods at all because it's too risky.
They haven't eaten in days.
Years in some cases. Yeah, I think the record on that is probably over 4 years, right? Because the longest brooding animal known on the planet, deep sea octopus.
Is that even after we account for the elevated temperature? Because that's why we think they brood by the warm seeps, isn't it?
So some of the ones that brood in those warmer spots seem to have managed to reduce their brooding time down to like a year or two instead of the 53 months, I think was the record observed for a single individual by researchers at Mbari. And that was an amazing story. They happened to see this female octopus on one of their dives approaching a rock. And because she had a specific scar pattern, they could recognize her as a particular individual. And so they just went back the next time they were in the neighborhood, and she was there and had laid eggs.
Oh.
And they kept going back on successive dives, and 53 months later was the first time they saw her not there. And the remnants of the eggs were on the rocks. So the eggs had hatched. But that's the longest known brooding period for any animal on the planet so far. And the other thing about that is that general thinking on octopus brooding is that it probably represents maybe a quarter of the life cycle for most of the species where this is known. So if 4 years is a quarter of her life cycle, that immediately blows out that species life cycle to like 20 years instead of the maybe maximum of 3 to 5 that the other sort of longest lived species we know of might go.
Which would fit the deep sea tropes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But it's not October, it's Squid-tember. So
okay, who are the candidates? Who have we got in the voting?
All right. So candidates, we've had Taningia versus strawberry squid already. Next
I'm disappointed
up is,
at that. I'm upset. I'm upset.
Me too. Although they were being championed by 2 members of my lab, so I was also conflicted about having to vote on that.
The fight is coming from inside the house.
Cannot possibly reveal which way that vote went. So then we've got neon flying squid, which is one of the most harvested species worldwide, recently split out from 1 cosmopolitan species to 4 localized species, versus giant squid, So that's today. Well, tomorrow, because we're a day ahead of everybody else.
Because we're time travelers. Because we're in the cool end of the planet.
I mean, it was on September 4th, whatever day you're listening to this.
Oh yeah, this will be Friday.
Yeah. Okay, Friday. Today or tomorrow is reef squid versus Rugose hooked squid. So that's one of my favorites because it was part of my PhD. So that's one of the big warty deep sea ones that has like cat claws on the tentacles.
Oh, nice.
That's not that I'm supporting.
Do you have to say neutral? Can you not have an opinion?
I can have an opinion.
Yeah.
I can and I do.
I know. I've seen you have opinions.
Whether I make it public or not is a different story.
Right. Okay. Professional neutrality.
Cool. And then next week we've got Brachiotuthis, one of the most obscure groups, I will say, in this competition, but one of the greatest taxonomically problematic families worldwide at the moment, being worked on by one of my students, versus bigfin or Magnapinna, the elbow squid. Yeah, that one. That's coming up next week. We also have pygmy squid versus another weird deep sea one with crazy light organs and hooks called Ancystrochirus. Doesn't even have a common name. We have Humboldt squid versus whiplash squid coming up next week as well. And colossal versus Grimaldatuthis, which is another super weird one with like extra pairs of fins and tentacles that it swims out and deploys as a lure. They don't even have suckers on them. It just uses them as like decoy lures, and then things get interested in them and it goes and eats them, supposedly.
Oh, this is cool. Okay.
Yeah. And then depending on how those go, the next 2 weeks we'll have matchups for the winners of that first set of polls. And then by the end, there will be only one. And we all know it's going to be colossal. I mean, we'll see who it's going to be.
Again, neutral.
Neutral, despite the fact that I am championing one of these species. So.
Well, then you're allowed.
Then I'm allowed. Yeah.
So people can vote on Twitter and Blue Sky. And if they have somehow missed the accounts to follow, we'll put some in the show notes if you want to dive into Squid-tember and fight with other teuthologists.
all are welcome. Make sure you champion your favorites, and maybe your favorite is one that you don't even know about yet. So everyone who's championing these is providing information across the month. There are also art prompts. So Ocean X is hosting this as well, and Sarah Mack, who's one of the lead squidology SciComm people. So there are art prompts across the month. There's coloring pages. She's dropped some new squid merch. Lots going on. If you check out, we'll provide some links.
Yay! Oh, that's great. Okay, that's a nice little social thing going on. Learn some stuff about squid.
It's the best month of the year unless there's Squidmas in a different month. In which
unless
case
it's another.
We will have to have a knockout vote for which one is the best month.
It's a busy squid calendar. Never a dull.
It is.
Are we ready to talk about our little sideline shenanigans?
We could say a few things.
Yeah. We don't want to over egg the pudding, to be very, very British, because it might not work. But me and you have been working together, playing with optics and light wavelengths and looking at light sensitivity in squid eyes. And we are going to try and build a lure to seduce some deep sea squid in the coming months.
Yeah, we have the sort of chronic challenge in all cephalopod science, really, that it's actually quite difficult to get observations of these animals. So, they've got most of them have pretty good eyesight. They are very aware of their surroundings. They are very adept at avoiding things that they don't want to have contact with. So they're pretty good at getting out of the way of nets. They're certainly quite aware, I think, of a lot of the gear that we put in the ocean to try to observe them as well. So, if we put in an ROV, if we put in a camera with a light on it, I think that's probably quite obvious to them in their natural environment. And if they don't want to be seen, they're not going to be seen. So we have this ongoing challenge of wanting to see them, but with our best efforts of come and be my friend and look at my camera, that is actively driving them away. And that's why for some species, predators still remain one of our very best sources of information, because predators have been figuring out how to do this across millions and millions of years, and squid can only get away from them sometimes. So, but it's as fun as it is to examine squid specimens from fish stomachs and whale stomachs. there's got to be a better way. So, for some of these things, we'd really like to have more of an idea of what they look like than just this dead, perhaps partially digested specimen.
Yeah.
And, for those of us who would really like to have a lower impact on the animals that we're observing as well, if we could get a look at them in their natural habitat without being too damaging or frightening to them, that would be a big step forward. And it would be lovely to have live observations of some of these animals. So we've been thinking about ways to be less scary.
Yeah. It's got me out of my my sort of traditional lander background of bait in front of a camera, because these tend to be up in the water column. So we need systems that will sit up in the water column, and scavengers, they'll maybe look for a wounded animal, like maybe scent in the water will show that something is injured and they can take it out like a shark. But there's not the scavengers that there is in the seafloor, because dead things don't tend to stop on the way down. It's not a viable way of hunting. So we have tried to change the attractant. We've tried to make a very stealthy system that isn't noisy and isn't bright in a wavelength they can see. And yeah, we'll be trying that out around the new year. And we're either going to be very, very famous or we'll never talk about it again.
And hopefully not both of those things, but just one after the other.
Because of the
Yeah, that's right. And this hopefully is going to work for some specific species. Scientists have worked before with the idea of using light as an attractant, and have had some really good success with that. We are doing it in a slightly different way because there's I think a good possibility for some of these animals that at one point in their life cycle, they go beyond the point where they might be interested in food. So if we're trying to create a signal that's getting them interested in coming to a potential prey item, they may live past a point where that's of interest to them. So then we've had to think about what might be interesting to these animals at a point where they're no longer feeding. And that's kind of the direction that we're taking it in.
We're flirting.
Yes.
Did you not want to go that far?
I don't know. If you want to say you're flirting with deep sea squid, that's on you.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. It's the whole premise. Cool. We're excited about that. You've provided the actual useful stuff, and I have been bodging together strange bits and pieces.
I've said, here's an idea, and you said, okay, here's how we do that.
And involves like baby food pouches, aquarium hosing, security cameras.
Some very, very patient engineers.
Yes, we really annoyed a lot of engineers.
Let's see, maybe theatrical gels.
Yes.
What other interesting components are we using?
It's a very New Zealand way of doing things. It's a lot of, as the phrase over here is, number 8 wire.
That's right.
Work with what
cardboard,
you got.
A lot of cardboard.
A lot of cardboard.
Which I'm going to let people envision for themselves how we're using cardboard in the deep sea. That's the mystery ingredient that we're not going to put into the recipe when we print it.
Actually, I was digging around in the archive and thinking of just winging it with whatever you can build and going looking for deep sea large squids. There's a little bit actually in this book here. I was looking around in the archive. So this is Nets, Lines and Pots, A History of New Zealand Fishing Vessels. And in there is a section on searching for the giant squid in the Cook Strait in the 1950s. So the Cook Strait is that little stretch of water that sits between the two islands of New Zealand. There had been a few exploratory voyages looking for new fisheries, but there was no deep sea water research in New Zealand until 1952. And that was headed up by Victoria University. The university is actually based in Wellington, so it's right next to the Cook Strait, with water depths getting to 700 fathoms, which is 1,300 meters or 4,200 feet, just 10 miles out from Wellington Harbour. And actually the harbour itself gets down to 500 fathoms, which is 900 meters of water. So it gets deep quick in this part of the world. So classics of deep sea exploration, they used beam trawl with nets imported from Britain. So whether it was based on some of the Challenger work, maybe, long lines and a grab. But they also built a huge trap, which was the bit that caught my eye, which was 9 feet by 4.5 feet in size. This huge cage you can see on some of the black and white pictures. and it had a timed release, which we've been chatting and we think was probably a galvanic dissolvable link or something like that that closed the trap, and they were hoping to catch some giant squid because we know they're in the area. So they built their own stuff on a shoestring budget. Feels familiar. And actually they got interested in the area after talking with some local fishers from Island Bay who described black fish with slippery skin like a frog's in the stomachs of groupers they were catching. So we knew there was weird, interesting things in the deep waters just off New Zealand. And they were successful. They found multiple new species, including a new shark, but they were also looking for new fisheries. And in 1957, the first orange roughy was caught, quite by accident, which confirmed that deep sea fishing was a possibility. And maybe we'll tell the rest of that story some other day, but it didn't bode well for the roughy, but it was a very profitable fishery for a while.
Alas. Do you know what they originally called orange roughy when they first came across it?
I think I've heard it. It's not appealing, is it?
No, they called it the diarrhea fish because the esters and oils around the head were just not nice. Not nice eating, not nice in the preparation. And my understanding is that it wasn't until they had fished out a number of other species that they decided to see if they could make roughy worthwhile, because it was considered a rubbish fish initially.
It's not a popular delicacy, although it might be now due to rarity.
Yeah.
Poor roughy.
I would love to know, though, what they thought they were going to do with the giant squid if they brought their box up and there was one in it. I'd like to know what the plan was.
Very angry in a cage. Put it back, say sorry.
They have washed up around Wellington. I believe there's one in collections that washed ashore at Lyell Bay, maybe in the 50s as well. So maybe even right around this time. Maybe that was part of what made them think it was a good idea to look there.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I will say I feel like we've gone a step beyond building a giant box and hoping that a squid will be in it when it closes.
I mean, yeah, just
maybe we combine them. Maybe we put our thing in the back of a giant box and see if we can bring up a very angry squid to the surface.
I am going to throw some traps down as well, but mainly because I'm a fish curator and I should probably catch some fish.
You caught fish this year already. What more do they want from you?
You've had some fish.
You've had some fish, and were they new species? Yes, they were.
Yes, they were. We've got new species at home. You can't have new species. We've got new species at home.
New species at home?
Yeah. Grumpy eel pouts, but yeah.
Yeah, but new ones. New grumpy eel pouts that nobody had seen before.
They've got that new species smell. It's really nice.
Is it though?
No.
It's one of those times when I'm happy my sense of smell is not that great. That is a perk in my line of work.
Might be what we do. Yeah. We had a taxidermist here who had no sense of smell. That was like a superpower.
Did they work on mammals? Because that's the epitome of wanting to not have a sense of smell.
Yeah.
Mammals and turtles.
Mammals and old birds.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess, watch this space. Depending on how things go, maybe there'll be updates in the future.
Or maybe we'll never mention it again.
Maybe not. We've done some preliminary testing, which, suggested to us that at least some of the ideas that we'd had were worth pursuing.
Yes, we have established communication, maybe.
And we did do an extremely low budget initial step of this on an earlier voyage this year while you were busy catching new fish. I was busy trying to talk to a deep sea squid using glow tape and ice cream containers.
Have you got yours?
You've got one there, don't you? Because I've got one here as well.
There you go. See?
I've got one here as well. So, so our friend Taningia, who got voted out on the first vote of Squid-tember, is known for appearing on ROV and deep sea camera footage. So kind of in contrast to the usual shy stereotype, they're not that worried about approaching and checking things out and, grappling with cameras a bit. You can see footage of like their hooks pressed up against the camera lens, which is quite cool. And the thing about Taningia that's super cool is that they have got the largest light organs in the animal kingdom. So they make very bright flashes in the deep sea. Been some nice footage of them collected.
Alan's very recently, was it last month before?
Yeah,
Alan
some of the highest definition footage so far. Yeah, just came in from Alan. And, so looking at that and thinking about what light signals might be the first ones to try to emulate. I thought, what if I could make something that was sort of the right shape and size and color and just see what happens? So we attached it to a camera system that was going down anyway. And we did after a couple of dives, have a brief encounter with Tuningia, which admittedly has approached many, many other camera systems and lights that were not dressed up as a low-budget Tuningia. But this particular camera system had been on, I don't know, hundreds or maybe thousands of deployments and had never seen one before. So it could be a coincidence, but it would be a very big coincidence.
That's a good p-value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It helped us feel like we were on the right track, and it helped us apply for some funding to take the project further.
And we did some wet testing, which hopefully I'll be able to share a video with everyone soon about how we got on. But yes, we have deployed it in an aquarium.
It has been in the water with some marine life to see, that it didn't completely fall apart and didn't, scare everything off to the far end of the tank.
Or murder all the animals, which I was worried about. But yeah, everyone survived, including the camera.
I was there the other week and they all appeared to be still alive, or they'd been replaced. I'm not sure which.
Oh, thanks so much for jumping on, Kat, and helping us out when it turned out we didn't have an episode.
I'm happy to be your lame stand-in end of the...
No, come on. It's... Who are you going to call? It's...
Squidbusters!
That really worked well on the camera. So hopefully we will be back with you soon with a full episode once we've recovered and gathered our senses after Alan's very long cruise, and he's managed to catch up with things. But thank you for joining us for a little impromptu Squid-tember.
Happy Squid-tember, everyone. Make sure you vote for the best squid.
Yes. If you can send me the links, Kat, I will put them in the show notes. And join the festive squiddy fun.
Deep see you next time.
Yes, she said it. She said the things. And we are busy already. If you would like to advertise with the Deep Sea Podcast, feel free to get in touch. Our audience is primarily young people with an interest in science, often undergraduates or people considering a degree in marine science, but it also includes established scientists. Feel free to get in touch if you're interested in reaching these groups.